What revenge of yours hit the victim way worse than you thought it would, to the point you said, maybe I shouldn't have done that? Story number 1. When I was in ninth grade, a kid ruthlessly bullied me for a few months. I'd gotten sick of it and devised a plan for revenge. Every Wednesday, we would get to sit outside for quiet reading time, and this kid would always go back inside for a pee. I had left and waited in the bathroom for him, peeking under the stall for his shoes to appear. He came in the bathroom, took a pee, then played on his Game Boy for the rest of reading time. The bell rang and he walked out of the crowded stairwell, still going down at his Game Boy. I bumped into him. He fell face first down the stairs and knocked out 4 front teeth. Everyone on the stairs assumed he just fell because he was playing his Game Boy. I always felt pretty bad about it. Story number 2. I'm still mad at myself for this. When I was a preteen, my friend and I went to one of those day camps that picked us up in a yellow school bus. One of the other kids on our bus was a younger boy I'll refer to as Eli. Eli was a freaking terror. He would scream and spit and hump things, make a mess, and be as annoying and insufferable as possible. Riding the bus with him was a nightmare for everybody involved most of the time. So, I came up with this idea. I found his family in the phone book and called up pretending to be a camp counselor. I told his mother that he was misbehaving on the bus and that he would either be disciplined or kicked out of the camp if he did not stop. She bought it, hook, line, and sinker. She said that we would talk to him about it. I felt so freaking smart. Until the next day when a quiet, sullen Eli showed up with a black eye. I felt bad about it after that. Story number 3. One time I saw a truck with a typical, "How's my driving? Call this number and let me know." So, I call and tell them that the guy was driving erratically because 16-year-old me thought that would be hilarious. The lady on the other end sounded like she was writing stuff down, and I started to panic, realizing that I may be screwing with the delivery guy's livelihood. So, mid-conversation, I drop the phone on purpose and pick it up and deepen my voice to say, "Sorry, that was my son. Apparently he thought it'd be funny to call the number on the back of your truck as a prank." The lady was understanding and said that it's nothing to mess around with, as they're taking the driving of safety very serious. I continued to feel bad, so I told her that my son would like to apologize. So, once again, I dropped the phone and apologized in a regretful way and then hung up. Probably the most elaborate, stupidest thing I've ever done. Story number 4. Coworker and I had a friendly prank war spanning 2 years. Close to the end of our war, he iced my car. Icing involves taking the hose to the parking lot every half hour and spraying a light mist over your victim's car when it's below freezing out. I finished my 12-hour shift to find my car encased in 2 inches of ice. My revenge was, I thought, both more inconvenient for him and less freezing my balls off for me. I decided to take a bedsheet, drape it over his car, and only took 4 or 5 trips out with the hose the next night. So, the next morning he finds his car with a 1/4 inch of ice freezing sheet to his car. When he starts peeling off the sheet, he pulled his windshield wipers, arms, and all of his ratty Jeep with it. I got a very crap phone call and I felt bad. The unwritten rule was, embarrassing or inconvenient, no damage. So I paid for repairs and he got his revenge. He planted a dozen pieces of smoked herring throughout my car. It took me 6 months to find the last piece. Hidden under the carpet under the back window of my car. I can still smell it. I don't even own the car anymore. Story number 5. I had a big group of friends from 13 to 18 when we were 17. One of them stole my girlfriend. To be fair, he legitimately knew we were hanging out. He got her drunk and, well, shagged her at a party. He knew I'd find out and said to my face he didn't care. Literally, he said, "Tough crap, mate." It was her fault as well, of course. She wasn't passed out or anything like that. She'd been leading him on and was sober enough to consent, if drunk enough to get over the social stigma of actually doing it. So, from that point on, our group of friends just cut this guy out of our circle. We stopped inviting him to stuff. If he tried to hang out, we told him to take a hike. My friends that have been friends with him since primary school just ignored him. Initially, I was super proud of this show of solidarity from my brothers. My best friend was actually dating my now ex-girlfriend's best friend, and he split up with her because of her attitude about the whole thing, trying to defend her friend to him and make him hang out with them as a foursome. So, first summer back from university, well, we're all 19 and 20. We see him at a local pub. I don't know what to do. Decide to try to be cool about it and go say hi. He literally tells me to duck off. I guess he blames me for all his friends cutting him out of his life. I don't get the chance to explain that in no way asked them to do that. They just did what they saw was the right thing to do. 2 weeks later, we're in the same pub and I see his younger sister. She's 17 now. Very attractive. I start a conversation with her about her brother and how I feel about what he did. She says that it did really hurt him, but he's got some new friends now, mostly from university, and is still with my ex, despite a long-distance relationship over the university semesters. He won't talk to any of us old friends, though, which I think is a genuine shame. He's known some of the guys since we were 5. One drink leads to another with his sister, and well, we end up back at her place. Her parents are away. Her brother is staying at my ex's apartment. She has her own apartment, but did not go to university and got a job. So, empty house. We end up having a bit of fun. Next morning, her brother calls around just as I'm leaving. The look on his face as he works out what happened, he goes from utter despair to absolute mental in about a half a second. Eventually, I just have to leave. His sister finally managed to explain to him that it was nothing to do with revenge or anything, and that I was genuinely sorry for how we treated him. I don't know if she told him the whole conversation we had about how I'd feel bad as I didn't want to upset him anymore. And she convinced me to come back to hers by saying she was her own woman. Could make her own decisions, and he wasn't due to be home anytime soon anyways. If he had not have randomly turned up, I hoped he had never known. He still won't accept my Facebook friend request, though. Story number 6. When I was a kid, I was at a local river. A great swimming spot lots of people came to. My friend pushes me in the river, and naturally I come up spluttering and a little red in the face. But it was all in good fun. For the rest of the day, I planned to get her back, waiting for the opportunity to push her in the water until she was at the edge of the river drying off. I pushed her, but her flailing and the slippery nature of the rock she was on made her slip on the spot, and instead of just splashing into the water, she landed on her back, hitting the rocks hard, and then fell into the water after. She was winded, but thankfully otherwise unharmed. Our parents were furious at me, and I just spent the next few seconds it took to get her out. Felt like a lot longer to me, just hoping I had not broken her back or something. 2 out of 10 revenge would not do again. Story number 7. When I was about 7 or 8, there was this girl at my school that was absolutely horrible. We'll call her Cindy. Cindy would run up to you, pull your hair out, steal the toy you were playing with, eat your snack at snack time, etc. In other words, she was a real jerk. One day, as we were finishing up recess in the playground, she came up to me, pulled my hair, and took some with it. That was the last straw. As the teacher was gathering everybody inside and wasn't looking our way, I grabbed Cindy by her pigtail and dragged her over to the playground. Now, this playground was built weird, with a sort of enclosed area in the middle of 3 bridges that formed a triangle that you could not get out of. Sometimes us bigger kids would jump in there during hide and seek and climb out later. But Cindy could not because she was shorter. So I picked her up and threw her down that triangle and left to go back inside. It wasn't until about an hour later when the teacher realized that Cindy was not in class. I didn't say where she was, and it took them another half hour to find her. I got in trouble and had to spend the next week in the principal's office and lost my Game Boy for a month. But Cindy, Cindy never messed with us again. Story number 8. Way back in elementary school, a friend threw a piece of chalk that hit me square in the forehead. It was the most humiliating moment for younger me, as everyone who saw that started laughing their butts off. Yeah, kids are jerks. I plotted and planned my revenge, so, to get back in the exact same fashion over the next couple of days. One fine day, a weapon in hand, I find him perfectly placed a chalk throw away from me. I yell out his name and quickly launch the projectile as he spins around, but for some reason he had his mouth open, and as he looked at me, the piece of chalk flew directly into his throat. His eyes widen and he starts choking. I stood frozen in shock as he fell on his knees coughing. Luckily, somebody grabbed him from behind and thumped his back, so he swallowed the piece of chalk. An adult walks in. Can't remember who it was at the time, but she looks at me and asks what happened. At this point, I'm shaking, realizing that I narrowly killed my friend. I say it was a mint. My friend, also shaken at this point, laughs it off, saying it went straight into his throat and he didn't taste it. The adult shakes her head and says next time just hand it to him like a normal person, and walks away. Years later, when we were moving away to another country, I remind him about the incident and come clean about the whole thing, and he just snaps and yells, "I knew you threw it." Story number 9. When I was a kid, I was extremely easy to scare with jump scares, and I hated them. I would always enter fight or flight mode whenever something jumped out at me, and then I'd be mad as heck afterward. When my buddies caught on to this, they made it their business in life to jump out at me and scare me any chance they got. Despite my hate of being scared, I was a huge fan of Halloween, and I had a Halloween party every year, either close to or on the big day. Naturally, this was the night when all my friends would do their damnedest to scare me so bad that I would bolt and run. They succeeded a few times when we were all under 9 years old, but something shifted in me the year I turned 10, and none of us knew it until it was too late. As usual, I had my big annual Halloween party, and as usual, all my buddies were there. And as usual, one of them wanted to try and scare the pants off me. About midway through the evening, I went down the hall to use the restroom, and while I was in there, my friend, I'll call him Aaron, scampered down the hall after me and hid in the darkened doorway. I came out the restroom and started down the hall. This is the moment Aaron jumped out and grabbed my arm. Ordinarily, something like this would have made me bolt like a freaking chicken crap that I am, but for some reason, that night, the flight side of my fight or flight got turned off. The moment he grabbed me, I whirled around and punched him square in the face, without even thinking about what I was doing. It was honestly just all pure instinct. And after impact, I realized what I'd just done and freaked out. Aaron wrenched his mask off and was clutching his face and groaning. Or so I thought. And I yelled for my father, concerned that I really hurt my friend. My dad and all my other friends came running down the hall to find out what happened. My dad flipped on the hallway light, and what greets us? Aaron, with his face covered in blood. I'm instantly horrified, thinking I busted his nose. But as I'm spewing apologies to him, I begin to realize he's not groaning. He's laughing. He grabs me by the hand I'd punched him with and yells, "What are you apologizing for? That was awesome!" And he yanked my hand over my head like I was the boxing champ of the world, and starts telling everyone how cool it was for me to just, well, haul off and slug him. If you haven't guessed, Aaron was a pretty cool kid. He thought it was great that I'd suddenly found the courage to defend myself. My father helped get him cleaned up, though he insisted on keeping his now bloody costume on and inspected his nose. Thankfully, it wasn't actually broken, but I still feel a wave of guilt run through me when I remember the sight of his face covered in blood, and remembered the feeling of my first hit in the snooze. I always will be grateful to him for handling it so well, and encouraging me to stand up for myself. But I still feel so guilty about decking him that I can't even imagine how I would feel if I'd actually broken his nose. What's up, everybody? Mr. Reddito here. I hope you enjoyed today's story of what revenge of yours hit the victim way worse than you thought it would, to the point you say, maybe I shouldn't have done that. If you have your own stories you want to share, go ahead and drop it in the comment section down below. Here on Mr. Reddito, I have daily videos, and you never know what question we're going to ask. Make sure you subscribe to the channel for more upcoming videos. Have a fantastic day, and I will see you in the next one.